Alright, so this is going to be a long-awaited video that I've been meaning to talk about. I actually have very high opinion on this particular subject. Somebody left a comment. I'll put his name right here. Sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head. And thank you for commenting, by the way. If anybody has a question or anything, just leave it in the comment. I will try my best to answer it. And that question is, do you support or agree with or go to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous? The answer is yes, 100% support, agree with. And it's funny because the dude that wrote that, somebody below it wrote, and this is a fine opinion, they wrote, oh, it's a cult. And I thought, I hear a lot of people say that, but sometimes I think some people just say things and they don't really know why they think that. It's just sort of an opinion that spreads around. But the funny thing is, it actually is kind of a cult, but I think it's a cult with good intentions. And it's like getting addicted to exercising. There's like, what's wrong with that? That's a good thing to be addicted to. And there's a reason it's a cult, and there's a reason that there are strict steps you have to follow. And I always like to make this analogy, I very much compare it to the military. And this isn't an anti-military statement, but if you really think about it, the military's primary goal is to turn young men into killing machines. And how are you going to do that without a strict life code, repetitiveness, unity as one? You kind of can't have NA or the military without, like, we are brethren or we are a fellowship. And like, if you've ever wondered what would the military be like if they didn't have boot camp, like the long, strenuously hard boot camp part of it, it would be chaos. Like, people on the battlefield would be just wandering around like lost characters in a Sims game. Like, you remember playing Sims when you were a kid and you don't know how to play the game, and you're like trying to get your little guy to go to work, but he's just like wandering around lost, crying and pissing himself? That's what it would be like if you didn't have boot camp, which is very comparable to what facing addiction would be like without a support structure or NA. There are people that have gotten clean and sober without NA, but I don't think that those people were true and honest, gritty addicts like me and you, for instance. For years, we have been developing these bad habits where we feed ourselves every day with instant gratification that's very easy to do. So, to unlearn really bad habits, you kind of need support structures, and NA provides that in a pretty good way. I mean, think about it. It's cool. You go in there, it smells like a church. People's breath smells like coffee and cigarettes. They're all really nice. I remember the first meeting I went to, I sat there and I'm all uncomfortable. Everybody's talking, they all know each other. And this guy walked in. I didn't hear him or see him coming, but he came up to me and he poked me and he went, "I love you." And I was mad. I was like, I'll punch you in the face if you do that. I don't know you. Don't touch me. But I eventually got to know the guy. He was pretty cool, pretty nice guy. Kind of crazy, too. There's a lot of, like, cool, crazy people in NA. And I'm, weirdly enough, afraid of public speaking. Like, if you ever get a job and you have to go to orientation, I hate it when they're like, all right, we're going to go around in a circle, and if you could compare yourself to a car, what car would you be? I hate that stuff. So I started talking. I said, "Hi, my name's Brian." My voice starts shaking immediately, which is a huge problem that I have. And as we all know, when your voice starts shaking, you sound like you're going to cry, and you feel like you're going to piss yourself, like a Sims character. So I just got up and walked out of the meeting. I didn't even finish my sentence. And I made a mental note, never go back to that meeting. That was traumatic. Oh, God. shouldn't have thought of that. But one thing I hear a lot from people that did go to NA and consider themselves cured or recovered or whatever it is they will say, well, when you quit drugs and start going to NA, then your whole life is about NA. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. Like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Like so many others, he says he wasn't doing anything wrong. You ask her if she's horny.
What's wrong with that?
And I think one of the things that keeps people from going is because it is super uncomfortable, dude. Like, you don't know these people. You don't want to, like, talk about yourself. Or maybe you do. Sometimes it's like it gives you adrenaline. And I heard a guy say one time, I thought it was brilliant. He was like, when you go to meetings, even if it's on Zoom, which, by the way, there are Zoom meetings, he's like, there's a spirit in the meeting. You can feel it. And I totally agree. Because sometimes you go to meetings that are so good, and you're just like, it kind of just reminds you, like, you know what? I made it through this day, and I went to a meeting, and I'm proud of myself. I feel accomplished. And you got to break out of your comfort zone, and you meet people that are very similar to you, who have had the same struggles. A lot of them are worse off than you. And, like, the idea of getting a sponsor is really uncomfortable. But to constantly hear over and over, like, listen, I was drinking myself into a coma and I was dying. I went May 4th, 1986, and I've been clean and sober for 42 years, and everybody claps. It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. So I highly recommend you do it. Another thing that keeps people from going is that they think it's like a big religious thing. And it's seriously not. Yes, a lot of people who speak, they'll say things like, you know, I know in NA it's a higher power of your understanding. That's what they say. So it doesn't have to be Christian Jesus. And they'll say, I just believe in God, and God helped me through it. That's as far as the religion goes. It's not like this super preachy Christian thing. My first sponsor was a transsexual person. Well, came up to me, and I'm like, this is a girl, but she has a beard. And I was asking about it, and they were like, yeah, I don't like the God thing too much. I don't know, maybe I make NA my higher power. You know, these people, that person took me out to Applebee's, like, on my second day of my sobriety. Of course, it didn't last, but I was like, wow, what a cool thing to do. Like, I don't even buy Subway. I think Subway's expensive, so I only buy dollar menu. This person took me to Applebee's. It's like, dude, that's like $22 each. And that person in particular was very, very deep into it. A lot of the people that you meet at these meetings live in, like, sober living houses, which that's even too extreme for me. I'm not going to go that hard. And you can tell that's really, they live for that. And in a way, they live to help themselves, but mainly to help other people. So ultimately, very good thing. And if you're afraid of going, just go to Zoom. You can do Zoom NA or AA. You can go to a website, Google online Zoom NA or AA meetings, and there's literally a website at the top of the Google search thing. There's a website that just leads you to all over the country and globe. Every 30 minutes there's a meeting, and you can walk around in your room, which is awesome. But one thing that I noticed about these Zoom meetings is that little kids, like middle schoolers, like prank call them a lot. And it's actually kind of scary because you're like, wow, why is there a child's voice screaming the N-word in this meeting all of a sudden? And they are actually really vigilant about that, to the point where I don't like being on camera in Zoom meetings, so I'll tape my camera. And the last few times I tried to go to Zoom meetings, they were like, but Brandon, is that you? Can you hear me? Can you show your camera? Because we're trying to be able to identify pranksters. So pranking Zoom meetings is so widespread that they're making it so you have to be on camera now, which kind of sucks. And just to end this video with a quick little personal side note, I go to meetings in my town, and I live in the same town as my uncle, and he hasn't had a drink in like 40 years, and he was like, I'm going to NA again, man, AA again, man. And I was like, oh, that's good, Barry, like, I'm proud of you, I'm happy for you. And he's like, yeah, I lit into him. Like, I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, this one guy, I shut him down. I don't know what it is, but my family, the men in my family, have like this deep, primal urge to offend as many people as they can before they die. My dad he's like the real life Kyle's dad from Facebook. Like, he trolls. The only reason my dad uses Facebook is to troll people and to upset people with the most inflammatory shit I've ever seen. Like, I'll go and see my mom and dad sometimes, and my dad will be on his phone, like, really, he looks really engaged and whatever, and he'll say to my mom, he'll be like, Kath, how do you spell essentially? And I'll be like, I'll help you with it. And I'll look at his phone, and I'm like, are you sure you want to post this on Facebook? And my uncle's the exact same way. So he goes to meetings to rile people up. And I'm like, dude, I can't go to meetings now if you're there because I'm your freaking nephew. And what are your enemies going to be my enemies? Like, if they know we're related? So he's just going to meetings to piss people off. So I have to actively plan to go to one. I'll walk in if I see my uncle, which I love him to death. And weirdly, I have footage where I was vlogging myself at a meeting, and I saw him. I have it on footage. Barry! Hey, man. I just randomly decided to come to this, man. But I'll walk right out of the room because I don't want to be associated with that. So, hope that was a thorough video. I definitely support AA and NA. So, if anybody has any questions, leave it a comment. I'll do my best to get back to all of them. Thanks for watching.